Hi, and welcome once again. This is B.E.P. Welcome to another edition of B.E.P. where, my goodness, whether you're a first-time member of our audience or not, you know that we bring you wonderful, wonderful expert speakers from all genres, from all areas of expertise, who come here to share their true beliefs, experiences, and passions, and in so doing, help to motivate, inspire, educate, even entertain. And today, once again, absolutely no exception. A fascinating guest today. I'm going to just leave it at that and say, please welcome Patrick Rickards. Welcome, Patrick.
Thanks so much for having me, Beth.
My absolute pleasure. As I was just saying, I didn't want to give too much of an intro because you're going to say it better than anybody. But your topic, life after hate. When I saw that, my emotion, it really caught me. It was a very provocative title, and it caused me to have to dig deeper. And then in wanting to invite you to be, of course, on B.E.P. You come from experience, you come from a wonderful backstory. Would you just share with us what the genesis of life after hate is all about?
Sure, happy to. So, Life After Hate is actually a national nonprofit organization. And the purpose of this organization is to help individuals disengage from violent extremist groups and online hate spaces. We hear so much these days about the rise in the amount of hate, the rise in the amount of ideology-based violence. And I think it gets to the point where so many people want to know, is it even possible to leave this sort of life behind? I mean, if you've been part of one of these hate groups, if you've committed just atrocious crimes against your fellow men and women, is it possible to rehabilitate yourself? Is it possible to get another chance at life? And our organization says very much it is, that one can indeed exit violent extremist life if they're willing to put in the work, if they're willing to take accountability for their past, and if they're willing to really chart a new course forward.
You said something, there's so much hate in the world today. And living in this very high-tech environment where we hear everything kind of in the moment, we're all living in each other's present moments in a way that we hear so much about it. But I do believe, as you said, that the actual rate of it, it's not that we are more aware of it, but there actually is more of it. Correct?
I think no doubt. Beth. I think we've seen that over the last few years. We've seen the increase. We've obviously seen an increase in the number of people who have been willing to be very public about their hate, about their ideology. That's something that in past years, in past decades, we sort of kept it to ourselves. We kept it closeted only for the people that really knew us. Now it's a very different story. And I think you're absolutely right. The online environment only makes things worse because you have individuals that will take to online because they want the attention. And what we've seen over the last few years, I mean, you have to say things that are wackier and wackier. You have to say things that are more and more extreme in order to get the attention, in order to get the comments, in order to get the responses that you seek. And that just drives us deeper and deeper into this hateful ideology.
So the fact that it is growing and that we have this methodology through technology and social media, what have you, why are people responding to it so much now? Why is there this thirst? Why is there this drive for people to become so extreme when it comes to hate?
Well, I think we have to really understand what is at the basis of hate. We often think in particularly in the United States, the opposite of hate is love. It's not. The opposite of hate is indifference.
Exactly.
And so when you look at why so many people are adopting hateful ideologies, it's not necessarily because they start off believing that they're anti-Black or that they're anti-Semitic or that they're misogynistic. You see more and more people that are adopting this ideology because they feel alone. They feel they're not getting what they're entitled to in this world, and somebody is to blame for that. They feel that they're not understood, they're not appreciated, and they're in seek of a community that is going to welcome them. And unfortunately, what we see far too often is those groups that are recruiting individuals, they know exactly what to look for. They know exactly how to take advantage of these individuals. And what ends up happening is somebody gets in so deep, they have no choice but to buy into the ideology, to adopt it, to embrace it, to celebrate it. And as a result, that's when we start seeing the physical manifestations of these actions.
You know, yes, I totally agree with that. And I'm so glad that you said the opposite of love is not hate. It is that indifference. And there is this kind of shamelessness about coming out and being proud of being part of these extreme groups. Isn't there a contradiction in this though? Here's what I thought as you were saying that. People feel alone and yet they choose to isolate. They feel alone and yet they're reaching so many through social media. Whereas if they didn't so much isolate, and I mean, physically isolate, that they're alone and it's just them and their computer, them and their cell phone, what have you, and actually reconnect with living, breathing people right around them. Hello, family, friends, classmates, co-workers. Why isn't that like a dreadful contradiction? It's the
It
truth.
can
It
be.
is the truth, but it kind of is a contradiction, an
Oh, it,
oxymoron, if you will.
it very much is. And it's fascinating when you talk to individuals who have gone into the life, who are part of these violent extremist groups, and then they get out. They will tell you that their time within the movement was some of the loneliest times they've ever spent, even though it's time that they're never alone. And I think you hit it, Beth, where you really hit the nail on the head. I mean, one of the challenges you have is, when these groups are recruiting individuals, they're looking for certain types. They're looking for those who are weak. They're looking for those who are scared. They're looking for those who seek belonging. And in order to join these groups, whether you're talking about it online or you're talking about it physically in person, you're forced to leave behind everything you've known. You're forced to leave behind your parents, your siblings, your teachers, your clergy, your friends, and the movement serves all of that. The leaders of these extremist groups are meant to be both your parent and your priest. And it gets to that point, though, where you then believe that you're not worthy of being with anybody else. You start wondering, even if your ideology is softening, you realize this is not where you belong. You become very concerned that civil society is never going to welcome you back.
And do you want to go back? Do you have a place to go back to? Or have you dug so deep in a way that you just keep digging?
And I think that's the struggle that so many people have. I would like to believe that everybody is worthy of redemption.
Yes, I believe that.
And any of us think about our own lives. None of us ever would want to be judged by our worst day.
No.
It just so happens when these extremists we're talking about, their worst day is hopefully far, far worse than anything you've ever experienced, anything I've ever experienced. But as you get into that, you do begin to wonder whether you're worthy of redemption, whether you can be welcomed back. And that's why the individuals that will reach out to us come to us for many different reasons. Some of them have hit rock bottom. Some of them are afraid their wife, their girlfriend, their kids are going to leave them, and they need to do something to change. Some are scared about having to go to prison because of what they've done, or because they want parole to get out of prison because of what they've done. Some are worried about getting doxxed at work or in their community and losing a job that they enjoy. And some of them really do recognize that the ideology that's been fueling all of their hatred is something that they just don't believe in anymore. You think of the average person, can go through this experience and say, they've been railing for years about those illegal immigrants who are stealing our jobs. And in a moment of clarity, they have this sense, they realize they actually don't know a single person in their life who's ever lost a job to an undocumented immigrant. And they begin to wonder, what else have they been calling for that isn't necessarily the case? That sort of introspection becomes incredibly powerful, but it can be hard to get to, and it can be even harder to get out of.
And it's also the influence that media has over us, that we believe what we hear and we tune into whatever it is that we tune in, whether it's on the left, the right, moderate, or you listen to a blend of all of them. But you kind of think that, well, if they're saying it on TV, that must be true. Like if the computer tells me this, it's got to be absolutely true. I'm finding great hope in got to look for the hope always. You've got to look for if people, whether they're imprisoned or have the fear of it or losing a job or losing a loved one, that they realize they no longer believe in it. Is that not an indication that they've actually begun their own redemption process?
It is. It is. I will tell you that. I mean, when you meet these individuals, when you talk to those who actually go through the exiting process, you'll never find an individual who is stronger or braver than them. When you think about the amount of work that goes through it, you're absolutely right. You can't force someone to disengage. They have to want to do it. Even if they see that there is the need for it, if they don't want to do it, if they're not committed to it, they're not going to get through the process. The process is not an easy one. This is not something you do for a week or two and declare yourself cured. You can never cure yourself of racist ideology, but you can begin to disengage, and you can cut yourself off from that life. But I can tell you, that's our organization works with these individuals. The process can often take 18 to 24 months to get out of.
So
You're having to do a lot of work.
Yeah, and well, it's the accountability. You can't make someone want to do it. So that's a very positive sign, is that when you begin the process with someone, you have someone who has made that decision already. Does it kind of mimic, and I don't mean to I shouldn't use the word mimic, but is it like a 12-step program that, AA is for alcoholics?
It can be. It can be. We have a lot of people that will say that. They'll look at the process that we put together ourselves, and it does resemble a 12-step program. You'll often see people that there's also a great similarity between what you see with regard to domestic abuse and how you handle those issues with what we're doing. Because I will tell you that, the average extremist is sometimes not what you think he or she is. We have a significant number of women who have to exit in addition to men. We have people of color who are having to exit white supremacist groups. We have a strong number, about 20% of our clients, once they begin the exit process, they identify as LGBTQ plus, are coming out of a world that is about as homophobic as it can come.
Right.
What we know is that all of these people are struggling also with significant mental health issues. 90% of our clients at Life After Hate come to us either with strong thoughts of suicidal ideation or with a desire to harm others. So there's a lot one has to sort through. And as I said, there's no cure to this. It's, when you talk about a 12-step program, we've all heard of people who fall off the wagon. And we have to constantly work with individuals to try to channel their emotions and channel their activities so that they're not slipping into those violent extremist actions again.
At the root of this, of someone stepping into like being an extremist for whatever it is, have you found that self-hate is often at the bottom of it all?
It's a big part of it. It's a big part of it. You see individuals who suffered traumas when they were young. You see that notion of self-hate. You see that notion of belonging, of folks who just don't feel they're worthy.
Right.
And I think all of this feeds in. I mean, you look at it, we're a country that, depending on who you talk to, for the first time, you have a generation that's not supposed to do as well as their parents. They're not necessarily going to get the jobs they want, the cars they want, the houses they want, the loved ones that they want. And we are a culture, though, that when we don't get what we believe we're entitled to, we look for somebody to blame.
Yes.
And so I think you see a lot of that in the early goings. You see a lot of that just seeking that commonality, seeking a tribe that you can belong to. And these groups are particularly adept at identifying these individuals and sucking them in.
It's not my fault. I'm not the only one. So you feel more comfortable knowing I'm not the only one. It's not my fault. So you seek, like water seeks its own level, kind of a theory. You mentioned a little bit ago the average extremist.
Yes.
Is there a way of defining the average extremist?
I think we used to believe there was. We used to believe you could go to a movie like American History X and say, oh, yeah, shaved head, the tattoos, the tight jeans, the Doc Marten boots. There's an extremist. That's the person I would cross the street if they're walking down in front of me. I don't want to be anywhere near them. Now you can't. You're seeing women playing just as large a role as men. We have clients that are exiting groups of violent white supremacy who are African American, who are Latino. As I said, we have LGBTQ clients that are exiting. It's changed a lot. And I think you add to that, you were talking earlier about the role that the internet plays, the role of being online plays. And the gaming world is a prime example of where individuals are recruited. But I think you also see more people that believe that violent extremism can be a part-time job. It could be, if you and I were having this conversation 10 or 15 years ago, those individuals who were extremists, they were committed. That was all they did. They lived and breathed it. Now, unfortunately, you're seeing those individuals that believe it's something you can do on weekends. You can hold a white collar job Monday to Friday. You can go to church with your family on Sunday morning, but Friday nights and Saturdays are meant for your organization. That gets scary.
Now, that's
And I think
very
as a result,
scary.
you see organizations, they know how to find those individuals that are best at raising money, or best at propaganda, are best at physical intimidation, or best at recruiting. And they find the people that fit into their organizations in the best way possible.
That's very scary to say you can have a white collar job, go to church on Sunday with your family, and be an extremist in whatever direction it is, um, whatever the ideology is. That is more scary than when you say you used to have someone who didn't blend in. That made them extreme because they weren't part of the majority. That made them extreme. So there's a lot of anonymity in this.
There is. And I think with the anonymity comes great power. Again,
Yes.
20 years ago, you were forced to be out in public. You were forced to be out on the streets. Your actions were things, you're curb stomping someone's face. To be very blunt. That's not what you see today. You see this new generation of keyboard warrior, where individuals feel great strength when they're behind a keyboard and there's nobody there to confront them.
Yes.
They feel great strength when you're getting all sorts of comments where people are calling you out, because it means somebody's finally paying attention to you. The world is constantly changing. I think all of these, whether we're talking about social media applications, you're talking about websites, you're talking about anything online, so much of this has the power for both good and bad. And what we see more and more is we're seeing that those evil forces are taking control of it and are figuring out how to become expert before the forces of good do.
Yes, yes. So it there's like stepping stones almost. You mentioned mental health, and we hear that in the media and everywhere all the time, particularly related to crime, any issues with guns, the right to bear arms, etc. Mental health always comes into that. So you're saying that really does play a very big part. Have you found then, let me clarify, a trend in people who are such extremists, that there are mental health issues from previous experiences in their lives?
Well, very much so. I think childhood trauma is a major trigger for why somebody joins an extremist group. As I said, I can tell you that our clients are coming to us with significant issues, so much so that when they begin the exiting process with us, one of the first things we do is we recommend that they need to see a licensed psychologist in the state in which they live.
That makes sense.
It is a necessary piece to this work.
What's very scary about that? Tell me if I'm wrong, but it made me think, those that you feel disconnected with your family often could be the reason why you're feeling, and because you said it could have been a childhood trauma. So I think so many things, Patrick, to be honest with you, can be associated with the breakdown of the family structure.
That's absolutely correct. And I think it's one of those, we want to believe that those who become violent extremists simply learn it from their parents. There's some of that, but you also see the opposite. You see individuals who are trying to rebel against their parents, and so they can have, fairly liberal parents, and then they adopt very extremist views. You can see individuals that are suffering childhood traumas that are the result of their parents, or that their parents never knew about. All of that plays in. I think what you're saying, Beth, is absolutely correct in that it's one of those, we as families, our family units need to do a much better job at figuring out what's going on and how do you address it. And I think that's one of those things. We think about our own loved ones, and if you have somebody in your life that you care about that is part of one of these extremist views, to one of these extremist groups, there's that part of you that just sort of wants to shake them and say, what are you doing? How can you possibly believe this? When you do that, that drives them even deeper into it. It's a matter of really trying to help them understand the why. And, it's one of those things, we work with a lot of individuals who are trying to exit violent extremist groups. We also work with a lot of family and loved ones. We work with people who will reach out to us wanting help, just understanding what are the signs I should be looking for? How do I talk to somebody I care about? This is tough work. And it's one of those things, unfortunately, when we don't do the right thing, we run the risk of driving one deeper and deeper into their ideology.
So answer that very question then. What are the signs? What should people be looking for?
Well, I think at the end of the day, when you start seeing a loved one that's isolating, you need to wonder why. When you start seeing a loved one who is, no longer engaging in the activities that they used to enjoy, you have to wonder why. When you see them spending more and more time online, and in that online, you're seeing it being spent in chat rooms, engaging, sort of that craving, constantly wanting to see how many responses, how many comments, how many likes. They're trying to get attention for it. When you see someone who's really starting to go through, in many ways, again, it's why the mental health becomes so important. Those beliefs that life isn't worth it anymore.
No.
I'm not doing what I thought I should do. This is not worth it. This is not what I expected. You need to start asking questions, and those questions become very simple. I mean, if we care about someone, it's really just trying to ask them why. Why do you believe that? Why do you feel that way? What happened? Non-judgmental questions. But when you start seeing those changes in one's lifestyle, we have two choices. We as human beings can either try to figure out what the problem is and do what we can to help, or we want to write off the person and go back to life the way we like it. And I think what we see is when you write off loved ones who are experiencing issues involving violent ideology, the risks of what happens next are too great for us to be willing to write off the people we care about.
Two points that you were just making there. You used the word choice, which I use quite often in my own life. It's a choice. My dad used to say that to all of us as we'd be leaving the house every day. Good choices, good choices. That becomes part of your curriculum vitae, if you will. Good choices. That affects everything. Is there a point in time where those signals become so glaring that I'll use the word intervention? Is that the proper word to use from a family member? Unless the child is following, as you said, sometimes they're imitating the parents who could be extremists as well.
Yeah, I think, we all recognize, I'm the father of two teenagers. We all recognize our kids are not going to make great choices all the time. We have to encourage them to do so, and we have to hope that they're going to learn from their mistakes and they're not going to repeat them. It all depends on, the motivation for the choices that one is making. And I think that, again, if you see, a loved one who's not necessarily making a choice that they think is going to better them, it's not going to give them greater opportunities. It's not helping them answer some of the questions that they're struggling with, but it's seeking to generate a reaction.
Yeah.
It's seeking to generate some attention, some outrage for them, because we all like to believe that we are worthy of someone's attention, and we don't necessarily distinguish between the good and the bad.
Right. And I think
if
we
you have
all
a family member completely worried, it's if your mother is completely obsessed with wondering why do you keep posting the things that you're posting online? Can't you see that's embarrassing to the family? Your cousin, your aunt just saw what you posted. That sort of thing can drive someone deeper into the ideology because they're getting the reactions they're seeking. It's a cry that things are not okay. And that sort of pushback just amplifies the fact that things are not okay.
But isn't that person in that example, isn't that mother, for instance, making it about the opinions that other people are going to have of me as your mother, or your aunt who saw it, or our next door neighbor, as opposed to the root cause of why that child actually posted it? There's a need there. There is.
It's very much. I think it's one of those, particularly if we as a parent don't understand why our child would do such a thing. It's human nature that our immediate response would be, you have to stop doing this because somehow it is looking bad on me.
Exactly.
The neighbors are going to talk. Our families are going to talk.
Right. It's not
Um,
about
and
you.
that's
You're
not
focused.
healthy. Because what that does is because a person who's going down a path of ideological extremism to cry for help.
Yes.
And if your
Yes.
response to their cry for help is, what about me?
Right.
Uh,
Exactly.
all that does is it gives the reverse. It drives them deeper and deeper away and makes it harder for you at some point. If you want to reach out, if you want to give that helping hand, it makes it harder for you to extend it.
Right. You're giving them the reaction they want. And we do live, I think, in a very myopic world where everything becomes about, the me, the me. And you mentioned earlier about, the younger people today, it's the first generation where it's harder than ever to do better than the parents' generation, the greatest generation, who might be the grandparents, actually, in this timeline. It's not because they don't want to do better. It's because, well, why is it? Why can't they do better? I mean, there's so many factors in that.
I don't think it's that they can't do better. I think it's that because they haven't done better. And we can chalk that up to opportunities. We can chalk that up to effort. We can chalk that up to all sorts of things. It's one of those. I think what you see is you start seeing individuals that aren't necessarily going to put in the level of effort, the level of work that the greatest
Right.
generation did to achieve what they wanted. We
Exactly.
believe that things come easier, and they should come easier to us. And so then when we don't get what we want right away, we begin to look for blame. And
Yes.
that's why you see when you look at violent extremism in the United States, it's very easy then to turn around and say, well, it must be the minorities, it must be diversity, equity, and inclusion, it must be this, it must be that. And the simple truth, Beth, is that we've reached that stage in American history where there is a flavor of hate for just about anyone.
And
I mean,
everything. And everything.
and
Yes.
everything. And so if you're going through that period, if you're feeling that you're not understood, if you're feeling that you're being denied, it becomes very easy not only to find somebody that you think is to blame for it, but to then find an organization that will help encourage you and amplify that blame even greater.
It says, you're right. This is where you belong. So another word that I dislike very much, I like choice, but entitlement. And that we've come to that point where I can see um, that sense of entitlement. I'm just owed it. I deserve it. And so it should be given to me, as opposed to from the greatest generation, went out and worked so hard to get it and to pass it on. Now it's just assumed to be the rite of passage, the entitlement, as opposed to working hard. Oh, so many things for a young nation that we need to kind of straighten out here. In our conversation today, which I'm absolutely loving, you said we. When people come to us, we talk. Talk to me. Who is that proverbial we?
Sure. So, Life After Hate is one of these unique nonprofit organizations in the United States. We actually were originally started by a group of former violent extremists who themselves had gotten out of the life, and they realized the strength, the power of being able to talk to others who are going through the same. That sort of peer support. When you
Mm.
can physically talk to somebody who's literally walked in the same Doc Martin boots as you have, there's power to it. And we did that for a number of years. We've been around for about 14 years now.
Mhm.
And it was several years ago, as we realized the complexity of the work, as we realized the individuals coming to us were struggling and starting to see a lot of the mental health issues that go with it. Our work has diversified. So when you're an individual seeking to exit violent extremism, you get a team of support. You get a case manager, somebody who's a social worker who's been prepared in how to deal with a lot of these issues. You also get a peer specialist. You get an individual who themselves has been a violent extremist and they've gotten themselves out. And both of those sides of the coin become so important to the process
Mhm. Mhm.
because it's you've got that person who's in a case manager who's making sure that you're taking all of the necessary steps
Mhm.
in order to disengage, that you're figuring out how you can be a successful member of society. But then you have those individuals who have lived the same life. There's nothing you're going to say to one of our peer specialists that they haven't heard or they haven't
Right.
done.
Right.
And that sort of frank, open, honest discussion becomes an important part of the process. So
Yes.
much so that we'll have clients that will reach out to their exit specialists, those peer advisors, you know, late on a Thursday, late on a Friday night because they're experiencing some real issues, we're able to help them.
Mhm.
It's that sort of support that one needs, that they know that no matter what they're going through, there are individuals within Life After Hate as part of their support team that are here to help.
You are
And there are
never alone.
individuals who have experienced the same thing and can speak from that truth.
And there's great power in saying, I understand, been there, done that. There's nothing you can tell me that will shock me. I get it, as opposed to someone who's just pontificating and, speaking textbook kind of language. How did you become involved in Life After Hate?
So I am actually the first non-violent extremist to serve as our executive director. And I think that was intentional on behalf of the organization. They realized as we continue to evolve, that there are skill sets that they need in order to run a successful nonprofit. But for me, it also becomes very personal. I am fortunate. I'm the father of 2 Latino children. And so, when I see this work, when I see the clients that we're helping, it's one of those. I realize that I am doing what is necessary to help kids like mine, kids who look like my kids, to live in a safer society, to have better opportunities and better options, to really be able to be part of what we see here in the United States, what we
Right.
believe, what the Statue of Liberty welcomes everybody to be a part of. So for me, it was really an ability to take the skill sets that I knew I had, and how can I apply them in such a way that we can make this a safer society, and we can make it a better civil society for all those that are involved. Life After Hate, our core mission is we believe in compassion with accountability.
Yes,
And so that is central to what we do, and it is essential to my approach to life.
in all things, and just to be shown that. So I said, I live with great hope. There is the possibility for redemption at any time, at all levels, for all of us. It's a choice we get to make. And now, thanks to a not for profit organization like Life After Hate, there is a place to go. How do people find you? How do they know where to go?
Sure. Appreciate the question. No, it's fairly simple. So if you are part of an extremist organization, or thinking you want to get out, or even have questions about what it would look like, you can simply go to our website, lifeafterhate.org. And there is an anonymous form that you can fill out. We don't require, even during the whole exit process with us over 2 years, we're not going to require you to give us your actual name and number. It's something, all of our work is done online. There is anonymity should you want there to be anonymity. And so you can reach out. We can begin the process that way. It's the same thing for family and loved ones. We have a number of groups that we offer and support. We have support groups for parents. We have support groups for women. We have support groups for other populations, so that they can understand sort of how do they fit with all of this, and how do they find the solutions. Because those loved ones require just as much help and support as
Yes,
those individuals who are exiting.
yes, yes. We put up a link here so people can go right there and connect back. How many people do you know? You said you've been around for 14 years, which is so wonderful. How many people would you say you've been able to help them
Sure.
find their redemption? And I don't want to sound judgmental, but go back to a non extremist way of living and thinking and being.
Yeah, I always use the term, how do we help people re-engage into our civil
Re
society?
engage. Beautiful.
And I think what I know is that over the years, we have helped thousands of individuals. We've helped thousands either disengage from violent extremism, or we've helped thousands of family and loved ones who've had to deal with individuals who are part of that world. We continue, the requests we get for services exceed our ability to serve.
Oh,
So we are constantly growing in terms of the individuals that we are helping with, the number of individuals at any active time, as well as the services that we're providing, because this work is becoming far more complex. But
and
everything
yes,
we do is free of charge. We don't charge our clients a dime. This is part of what we're doing in order to make our community safer and better. And so we are willing to put in the work, as long as our clients are willing to do the same. And so
so
that I say
how are
that
you funded? How are you funded, Patrick?
We raise money from private sources. We have individuals that support us. We have private philanthropy that supports us. We get grants from different places as well. It's necessary for the work. You know, quite frankly, the people that are going to need our services the most are going to be the ones that can't afford to pay for it.
Yeah, yeah.
We have to figure out how to do this and how to do it in a way that makes the most sense. You know, it's why, as I said, you know, we can't provide licensed psychologists because of the way healthcare laws work in the United States. You have to be licensed in the state where an individual lives. So, but what we can do is we built a network. We can connect you to individuals who are willing to take on these sorts of clients, who are willing to deal with the fact if you don't necessarily have the money to pay for mental health services, how do you work around that? Because we recognize how important it is. This is not easy work. The
No,
team that I
I
work with, I am
no,
so
no.
fortunate. They go above and beyond to provide the services that are necessary to work with individuals that so many of us would choose to ignore if we saw them walking down the street or sitting next to us on a train or a plane. But it is our commitment to getting this work done and to make that sort of difference that comes through each and every day.
And as you say, the need is growing. The population, the numbers of people who need this help and hopefully are choosing to re-engage or disengage from that life and re-engage in a more society acceptable behavior continues to grow. Are you only in the United States?
Life After Hate is only in the United States. We have sister organizations in other countries. So when an individual reaches out to us, if they're from the United Kingdom, we can connect them with Exit Hate UK. If they're from Sweden, we can connect them with Exit Sweden. There are several organizations that serve Canada, for instance. But we have been known to take on clients if they happen to be from a country that does not have such a program. Then we will work with them. We believe that anybody who is willing to put in this work deserves that sort of respect and that sort of compassion, and we will do whatever we can.
Yeah. Is there anything, are you noticing over the 14 years, is there I'll use the word recidivism for people who disengaged and then they go back to that life or?
I'm very fortunate to report to you, Beth, there really isn't.
Oh, that's
That when an
wonderful.
individual is willing to put in the sort of time and effort, you know, there may be some slip ups along the way, but once somebody has disengaged, as long as they are committed to the process, they can remain disengaged. And you know, if they should slip, if they should fall back on their own lifestyle, on their old lifestyle, we will work with them. We'll get them back to where they once were. And you know, I say that in that, you know, we now take court mandated cases. We work with individuals that, as per terms of their parole or per terms of to avoid prison altogether, will want to work with us, and we're open to that as long as they are willing to put in the effort. If
Yes.
they're going through the motions, there are plenty of individuals who are willing to put in the hard work to do what's necessary.
I don't
And so
imagine you
we
could
don't have
fake,
time for those that aren't committed to the process.
I don't imagine you could fake this because you said the work is hard. It has to come from the heart. You really have to want it and truly believe you deserve it. How blessed are we to have you and your wonderful Life After Hate organization, a not for profit here in the United States, available to people who can reach out to you and ask for the help that they need, that they can do it in a safe and an anonymous environment and find their personal redemption, go back to their families. I can only imagine, and I can't even say how much you and everybody that works in your organization, the feeling of such satisfaction in the work that you do. I mean, if you change the life of one person, you change the world. I believe that. And you're helping so many people. Thank you. I mean, for being there and doing what you do and having the passion that you have. Um, I asked you, and you did say that you were the first non-extremist to be part of this process. So, what was it that called you to it?
I think we all reach that point where we have to look at what contributions we can make to society and see where we can make the most good. And for me, it was, you know, reflecting on my own children, reflecting on the hate that and the ideology hate that they often feel even at a young age.
Hmm.
I realized that my own background, this was something that I could help this organization. I could help its clients, I could help its staff, and could ensure that we have an even greater impact than we have in the past. And I think that sort of response is something that all of us have to look at. We
Yeah,
reach that
yeah.
that that point in our lives where it can't be about money, it can't be about title, it can't be about stature. It really becomes, are we leaving the world in a better place than where we found it? And
Amen.
that's what I look at this
Yes.
work as.
And that should be, I think, everybody's goal. No regrets, and as you say, to contribute. Thank you for the wonderful work that you do personally, and for having the empathy as not having been an extremist, but to come in a non-judgmental way and say, I can help. I believe I can make an impact on the lives of these other people. That's like a vocational calling. I look at it that way. So God bless you. And as the group continues to grow, that you find such satisfaction, continued support. And again, we put up a link here. I would say this is kind of like you hear on TV. If you know someone, not just yourself, but if you know someone, a loved one, someone that you truly care about, you can reach out to Life After Hate. You can connect with Patrick Rickards. You can just go right here to this link and make anonymous connections and see where that takes you. Where it takes you is where you need to be, is what I look at. Follow the path. You will end up where it is that you are supposed to be. And to know that this is a wonderful, wonderful resource for you to have. So, Patrick, I knew this was going to be a very interesting conversation. We can go on and on and on. And I say that in a way almost sadly, because the need is so great. And yet, you know so much. You bring so much of your own beliefs, experience, and passions, which is what we talk about here on B.E.P Talks. So, thank you for the work that you do, for taking the time to share it with us. And I wish you nothing but so much continued success as the organization, and so much personal fulfillment to you for the work that you are doing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Beth. I appreciate you.
And thank you. What a lovely thing to say. Back at you. So, to all of you watching, our viewers, you know we never disappoint here at B.E.P Talks, and Patrick is another brilliant example of that. If you have a message that you want to share, we want to know about you. We want to know about your message so we can share it here on B.E.P Talks. Simply go to beptalks.com, B-E.P talks.com. You'll find all the information that you need and how to get back to us. And we vet all of our speakers so that we know we're truly bringing you experts that truly have something worth hearing, because it's been worth sharing. So, as we also say here at B.E.P Talks, in association with the Global Society of Empowered Women, may the best always be yet to come. And I think today, talking about Life After Hate really proves that the best always can be yet to come. So thanks for joining. And until we talk again, bye for now.